Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Got some really exciting content for you guys today. Today we're talking all about driveways. We're back here today, and you can see behind me the driveway is finally poured. Now this driveway is fantastic because we're going into winter here in Michigan, and we get a lot of unpredictable temperature swings. It could be 40 one day when everything melts and gets muddy, and then the next day it'll freeze solid and you can't get your equipment in. So we decided to get this driveway nice and early before it gets cold, allowing the concrete plenty of time to set before the winter. A couple things I want to point out to you today about concrete are thickness, makeup, and different types of options you can add to your concrete, which can add a lot of strength and reduce the chance of cracking. The saying in concrete is not if it'll crack, it's when it cracks. All concrete cracks. Now don't take that out of context though, because what we do is make sure the concrete cracks where we want it. When you're making concrete, you have a mixture of cement and aggregate. Cement is the binding product in concrete, and aggregate is everything from sand to small stones to larger stones, depending on your mixture that's designed by your engineer. Now what happens, the water that's added to concrete to make the cement hydrate, which starts the chemical reaction, that water takes up space. So when the water clears out and dries and the concrete is at its final cured stage, there's little gaps, little porous areas. So the more water you have in your concrete, the weaker it could be potentially. So the biggest thing about concrete is getting the right strength mix and then adding just the right amount of water so you can use it, it's usable, you can get smooth, but not too much water. So out here in Michigan, we get big thaw and freeze cycles. So in addition to putting more base down, we also do a stronger concrete for outside. Outside we're doing 4,500 PSI concrete. Now this is the rating that is given to it, and this is the amount of cement, the binder, that's in the concrete. By adding a little more, we can take the standard 3,000 pound cement and make it to a 4,500. Hi. So another thing you'll see is that we poured this concrete with a full 4-inch slab. Now typically when you're doing a tract home in a subdivision, where they're doing driveway after driveway, cost is a major factor, and you figure the majority of the time concrete is going to hold up just good enough. But since we're doing this spec home by itself, we're selling at a premium price point, we are doing a couple things to make this concrete last a little better so that we don't get callbacks. So a full 4 inches, that's the first thing. This is going to be a 2x4 form with 1/2 inch dug out underneath the form. And then we're doing about 5 inches of aggregate under our concrete. Some people would say this is a little excessive. It's something that we like to do because we don't want to come back for callbacks and replace a slab or have something look bad as a review in our future. Now coming back to concrete cracking all the time, but where we want it to crack, we've cut these control joints here. So these control joints are going to control where the concrete cracks. So if you imagine the cracking from the concrete pulling apart and getting smaller when it cures, it's going to crack in this crack that we've already cut, meaning that you can't see the crack at all because it's hidden by a relief joint. And this is perfect. This is what we want. It's going to allow a little bit of movement, especially in the seasons when you get freezing, which is going to expand, and contracting, which is going to make the concrete go back down. We're never going to see those cracks because they're hidden in the relief joints. And one thing you can even do is come back after and put a seal into your joints to stop any water from getting down in there, just reducing any more chance of movement. Coming over here to the front door, we got this really cool board-formed concrete steps. The pattern here is something I love. I think it's a really nice modern pattern, and that can either be buffed out a little bit to reduce it or kept like that to really highlight that feature. But what you can see is we have this one monolithic piece for our steps, and this is full of rebar. So that rebar, that metal, holds concrete from pulling apart. We talked about how concrete is strong in compression, that 3,500, or in our case 4,500 PSI of strength when you push down on it. Now the rebar is going to help that from pulling apart because metal is strong in tension, pulling apart. So those two factors together are going to make these very strong and reduce any chance of cracking. A couple important things on steps is making sure the rise of each step is within 1/4 of an inch. That's gonna be something that your inspector is definitely going to look at, because if you think at it, when you're walking up steps, you want those steps to be even, because your foot is going to naturally know that height without even your mind thinking about it. If you have differences in steps, your foot is going to probably fall off. It's a chance of slipping. So we do have our inspection from the city that passed for our sidewalks. This is important on width, slope, make sure everything's level. And now that we got that passed, we're ready to move on to the next phase of our project. Quick feature that as a homeowner or as a builder you want to put in is always putting down a piece of conduit or piping underneath your concrete, especially steps, because you know you're going to have downspouts and then possibly things like electrical lighting wire for landscape lighting. So you want to get this PVC in at least a 4 or 6 inch before you pour your concrete, because getting underneath after in that compacted base is almost impossible. Knowing these 5 things is going to be key with your driveway. Concrete is a huge investment. You want to do it right the first time, and you don't want to come back for any callbacks pulling out concrete to lay something new. So right here you can see all the relief joints cut between us. You want to go between 6 and 8 feet for a residential driveway. This is a lot different than a street, where a street could be 8, 12 inches thick. Residential driveways are typically 3.5 to 4, which is what we did, 4 inches. So you want to cut these at a nice pattern about every 6 to 8 feet. That's to keep your driveway from cracking in spots where you don't want to crack. One of the things that I would know, and what I'd recommend, is always go wider on your driveways than you think you need. The extra 2 feet that we went from the edge of the garage door outside is going to be a great place for people to step out of the car and not have to step out on the grass. This is something that I've experienced, owning a home, is that these little things make such a difference in your everyday life. And it's something as a builder you might not think about, because you need to add those additional 2 feet, which does cost you money. In Michigan here, we pay about $4 to $6 a square foot installed for 4-inch thick residential PSI 4500 concrete. Now this is going to vary drastically in different parts of the country, so these numbers are only going to make sense in Michigan. But in Michigan here, that $4 to $6 is pretty standard. And I'll show you some other videos. Decorative concrete has a bigger price range. You could be paying anywhere from $8 to $15, depending on the type of concrete. So obviously there's tons of varieties, and I'd be happy to show you a little bit more in some of the other videos. So guys, stick around on this channel, subscribe to the channel to get more updates, click the notification bell, and then of course, like and comment on this video if you want to learn anything more about residential concrete, decorative, or just plain white concrete like you see here.